In your experience, what's the biggest difference between someone who hustles hard for their six-figure income versus someone who magnetizes it?
When it's hustling, there's kind of this energy of fear and scarcity. What if you can have bigger and better results from this place of confidence and attraction? Instead of chasing money away, you become invitational and irresistible.
You're listening to Everyone's Talking Money. This episode is for smart, successful women who want more clarity, more confidence, and more control over their money. You've done everything right. You've built a career, maybe even a business. You've got the receipts to prove you're financially independent. But deep down, money still feels tense, fragile, maybe even a little scary, like it could leave just as fast as it came. If that hits a little too close to home, you are in the right place today. Because my guest is Morgana Rae, aka the Money Goddess, and she's helped thousands of entrepreneurs, creatives, and high-achieving women stop chasing money and start attracting it like a lover. Yes, you heard me. We're talking about wealth attraction that begins not with a spreadsheet, but with love. And not the ooey gooey romantic kind, though there is a tuxedo involved. Just wait for it. But a radical reimagining of your relationship with money, one that actually works with your nervous system instead of against it. In this conversation, Morgana breaks down her 6-step financial alchemy framework and explains why your biggest money breakthroughs are often hiding inside your most painful personal experiences. This is one of those episodes that will definitely get you thinking differently about how you earn, receive, and even hold on to money, especially when you've already hit that 6-figure mark and still feel stuck. Let's get into it. Morgana, you're known around the world as the Money Goddess, and your work flips the whole idea of money on its head. So let's start there. What do you mean when you say we should attract money like a lover? Because that's not exactly how most of us were raised to think about money or wealth.
Well, it's certainly not the way I was raised or grew up thinking about wealth. And it really began after years and years of monumental failure, despite, the Ivy League education and a mountain of certifications and celebrity clients here in Los Angeles. And the money thing was such a painful and shameful failure for me. And not to be competitive or anything, but at my low point, I was struggling to make $100 a month in Los Angeles. Beat that, don't. Um, and things flipped for me because I was taking all the classes. I was racking up more certifications. I had mountains of testimonials. I was doing the public speaking. I was taking the classes on marketing and sales. In fact, I was taking the classes that were telling me how to do what I was already doing. And nothing was moving the dial. I was working with a coach, which is kind of crazy to think about when I'm living in Los Angeles, one of the most expensive cities in the world, making $100 a month at this point and just living on debt, credit card debt, borrowing from family. I'm sure nobody knows what that's like. And producing really astonishing results for clients, especially in the entertainment industry. And I was hitting, if money were an addiction, I was hitting bottom. I had this money repelling superpower, like imagine a giant R on my chest. And I came to my coach and he asked me this very weird question that changed my life. And I don't even know where it came from. But I think, I was always that straight A student. Let's go, coach. Tell me what to do. And I would do it and nothing changed. And today I was not that. I was just like a vomit of grievance, everything that wasn't working. And he asked me, Morgana, if your money was a person, who would your money be? And now we're addressing your question. Because unbeknownst to me, because why would I know this? The person who showed up in my mind's eye when I imagined money and that moment of time being a person was this big, scary, dirty, violent biker dude who was all malice and hated me and wanted to harm me. And like, I never imagined that I felt that way about money. Here I'm doing all the thing again and again and again. And I want money and I want to buy things. And I never knew that I felt that money was this cruel, rejecting entity who hated me, who delighted in crushing my spirit and making me feel worthless and rooted in, family dynamics decades before. I never knew that I felt any of that about money until I made it a person in that moment of pain. And I'll circle back to that later. But when I saw this guy, I had this moment of imagining myself at a live event, and I would keep my eye on him all the time, kind of like I was in real life. But unconsciously, I was keeping my eye on him to create distance because there was so much hurt associated with this relationship, this dynamic. And I realized there was no way that I could have money in my life if it was that guy. That's a totally imaginary guy. But the thing is, our imagination, I'm I've been a master practitioner and trainer of neuro-linguistic programming and Ericksonian hypnosis among the dozen certifications, right, for 20 years. And so we know that the lion's share of our consciousness is unconscious to us, not below our conscious awareness, and all of our attitudes, beliefs, actions, and results come from the unconscious. So if consciously I'm like, yeah, 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 let's make money, but unconscious is like, oh, no, we don't. There's no way that I could have that in my life if it wasn't safe, which is why I say change happens at the speed of safety, especially if you're doing everything right and your results are not matching the effort and it doesn't make sense. This is what I want you to look at. And I'll tell you how a little later because I'm driving through the story. So there was no way that I could have money in my life if it was this guy. That was clear. So I had to get rid of him. Like if you've ever broken up with a bad boyfriend, useful skill here. Boot him, not going to work, not working for either of you. I've become a little more dramatic and violent in the getting rid of money in the years since. But at that time, way, way back in 2003, that was enough. And it was one of those, yay, I got rid of the monster. And yikes, I got rid of my only relationship with money. And I live in Los Angeles and I can't survive that way. I need to have a relationship with money. But since my only known relationship with money, I was realizing in that moment was this really painful, scary, heartbreaking dynamic. If you've ever been in a really bad relationship, you don't want to go near that again. So I was thinking to myself, who could I love so much that I would love this person even if it's money. So it has to be so safe, so delicious, so wonderful, a person that I want so much that I could have it in my life, even if it's money. And because I was just in such a dramatic cycle of, the hopelessness and then the monster, now the monster is gone. When I asked myself that question again, I saw in my mind's eye this new person. By the way, I am terrible at visualizing. Like, tell me to, imagine sitting by the bank of a river, and I will spend the entire meditation going through a slideshow of every river I've ever seen. So if that's a problem for you, you're preaching to the choir. I understand it. It works anyway. So, but in that moment, for whatever reason, the visuals were just popping up, maybe because I had been in such a dark place and all the neurology, all the feelings were lit up. You know what I'm talking about. I asked myself that question, and in my mind's eye is this tall, dark, handsome, romantic, sweet, clean cut, romantic. Did I say romantic like 2 or 3 times now? Guy wearing a tuxedo, holding a bouquet of red flowers who loved me and wanted to woo me. And that was so weird and unfamiliar, but it felt so good and it felt so real in that moment. And I had this awareness that he was really vulnerable. Like he really loved me and wanted to be with me. And my pushing him away all those years had been breaking his heart as if he had always been there. So the great thing about personifying something like money, because I know that many, many, many of my colleagues talk about money as energy, an exchange of value, a belief system, a measurement, all of which is true. But I don't know how to have a relationship with a measurement or a belief, or and it's those are all very abstract intellectual concepts, and that's not where change happens. Change happens much, much deeper, and when you make it a person, it feels much more real, and you become aware of things that you weren't aware of before. So also, when you make it this gorgeous love partner, he, she, they, whatever your flavor is, and you ask a question, you get a response. So I had this awareness that this iteration of money with the who looked like he wanted to whisk me off to the opera, very, very cute and handsome, wanted to be with me in a big way, lots of money. And I'm like, whoa, all of my neurological patterns for pushing it away were kind of flaring up. And I realized, holy heck, I don't know how to allow money to be with me like that. I could feel how much money wanted to be with me at a bigger level than I had ever played before. And I did not know how to allow money to be with me. So I asked. And the response I got surprised me because the answer was from, and he felt so real, felt like a person and so sweet. And he said, I need you to love me and I need you to stop treating me like a monster, which, by the way, seemed really fair. So finally, money says, I want you to love me. I want you to stop treating me like a monster. And I suddenly was thinking of all the ways I pushed money away and pushed clients away, completely oblivious to what I was doing because of my own discomfort, because of family drama, stolen inheritances, Holocaust, all, plug in the traditions of your ancestors and the traumas of your ancestors, and that will show up in your relationship with money. So the punchline is that week, four people hired me for double what I'd ever charged before. And they kept coming and coming, and my rates kept going up and up, and I've made millions of dollars, and I own multiple houses in Southern California, and I'm the person who is struggling to make $100 a month. So I would like to break this down because honestly, the reason I do stuff like this is because I want to erase poverty and scarcity and money as this weapon in the world.
You've helped people make 5, 6, even 7 figures, sometimes in hours after doing this work.
Well,
So that probably sounds like magic to some of our listeners or unbelievable. But what's actually happening there? What changes that quickly?
thank you for asking that. I love that question. So, first of all, when people get phone calls during or after our coaching session, and I'm as shocked as anybody, it just happens so much. What I do know from a scientific standpoint, because I'm not a law of attraction coach, I was a national merit scholar in math and science, who then admittedly got a degree in religion because I wanted to understand what people believe. But it may seem like magic, but there is science that explains a good chunk of it, which is we will unconsciously, it's the prime directive, our unconscious will protect ourselves from a threat. And the threat may be money, because the whole what do they say, more money more problems or something like that. There's that saying. Instead, what I really want to do is I want to find out what we are protecting ourselves, what the block is. And in my experience, the money block, what I call the monster, because I like to personify, because it's easier to get rid of an imaginary person creating this archetype unique to you than just ideas, because we want to go deeper. We want to light up your neurology, and we want to rewire your brain to the trigger of money, from shutting down in fear to relaxation and love. There was a study years ago where they were doing brain scans of people thinking about picnics and family and kittens and all the things that make you happy, and it was lighting up the frontal lobe, the genius zone. But as soon as the topic of money came up, it all shut down, which is all of our best thinking, and the limbic reactive emotional safety brain lit up. And this is not where we get our good decisions. This is where we feel trapped and limited, and we go in spirals, and we make choices by fear, which are never good, are rarely good choices. Literally, if you are being chased by a tiger, run. That's a good choice. But The higher the emotion, the lower the intelligence. So what we want to do is really uncover what is the unconscious block, make it real. And to your subconscious, it can't tell the difference between like the drink that is here in my hand and the one that I'm just imagining. It's all the same. So from a neurological, and one of my clients is a neuroscientist, so she sends me articles about this all the time to prove why it works. Is we are changing the way you think, your attitudes, your beliefs, your actions and results on a system wide basis instead of muscling through with your willpower, especially when everything around you is a mess. If you can take a look at your circumstances, and I like to say, just imagine sitting on the couch with this money who loves you, who feels very real, and you're just cuddling and you're looking at the situation as if you're watching it on TV together. What do you notice now? What does your money honey see? And you get better information. It's a great filter for, shall I take this job opportunity or not? Because we can rationalize everything. Our minds will lie to us to get us the answer that we want. But I want you to be going deeper than just rational thought, to really be in touch with the micro signals that we filter out so that you get better information from that relaxed, expansive frontal lobe, truly wise uh, relationship with your own experience. But there does seem to be a correlation, like a more than random correlation between people changing their relationship with money or love or health or whatever it is, from a monster to a partner who loves you and shares your values. And by the way, that's a really huge one. Because if you have money on one side of the playing field, and then you have love and legacy and lifestyle and all the things that you want on the other side, and they're fighting against each other, everybody loses. But if you get them all on the same team, then you can think a lot more creatively with fewer restrictions, and you set better boundaries and you make better choices, and you see opportunities that you might not have seen otherwise.
What are some of the exercises to get everyone on the same team?
Ah, well, the first step is to get really, really honest about where you are now and not sugarcoat it. Uncovering the root cause, which is always going to be anything that ever made you feel unloved or unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, unsafe, especially if it doesn't look like it has to do with money, illnesses, accidents, violence, wars, climate, any of it that makes the universe not a friendly place. I want you to use that. Anything that has ever made you feel powerless. That's scary stuff. Put that in there. So that's step number one. I know a lot of my colleagues like to say, change your money story, change your life. I've never found the monster in the money story itself. With a client, I will start with the money story. I'll say, what makes you think you have a money monster? But I am listening for the stuff behind the money, the stuff about love and betrayal and hurt and shame and fear and hopelessness. Any of those themes. And even if you've healed it 1,000 times, if it has any energy, use it. You've already paid with your pain. And if you can milk it, take it to the bank. Literally, right here, just light it all up until you create what I call a critical mass of ick. That is the scientific technical term, a critical mass of ick. That's step number one. And when you get there, and it's like, ugh, life is scary, icky, and hurts. And extra credit for tears, but it's not required. You do not need to get everything. You do not need to re-traumatize yourself. You do not want to go so far into the pain that you dissociate. So be gentle with yourself, but get enough that when you make it a person, a monster, it's worth annihilating the monster and put everything into what I call the money monster. Just give it personhood, and it can be some famous person or it can be completely imaginary. It's just not you, and it's not your parents, even if your parents, and especially if your parents were not monstrous. Because in step number 3, I want you to annihilate it. And I want you to seriously put everything into this monster person. It's your relationship with money, but it's based on anything that made you feel unlovable, unworthy, unsafe, or helpless. all the pain, everything that's wrong with the world, everything that no longer has permission to be in your life experience. And you stuff that into this monster. And step number 3 is you annihilate it by any means necessary. That kind of energy is thou shalt not pass, to quote Monty Python. And just kill this imaginary monster with any weapon you want to imagine, whether it is a steak knife or an atom bomb or a flamethrower, or I had a client who drove over her monster with a monster truck, until it feels completely gone, not just dead, but I want no bloody bits, like no trace, like no future. When it's gone, it will feel different than anything you've experienced in your life, because it's sort of like you've been a fish in this ocean of monster. So you didn't notice it until it's like, where'd it go? And that is the perfect time to move on to step 4. So step number 1, uncover the root cause. Step number 2, personify the root cause as a monster. Step 3, eradicate it by any means necessary. You're like creating your own action movie here. Step 4 is you meet your money honey. And the reason I say meet instead of create, and if you find recordings of interviews of me from like 15, 20 years ago, you'll notice I sound a little different. I don't want it to feel like you're creating your money monster, because then it can go round and round in circles. Like, is it Denzel Washington or is it Hugh Grant? And I want it to be more like, this person has always loved you and is there and has been waiting, and he's his own person, whatever he looks like. And sometimes I'll get some, like, my client will say something funny like, my money honey looks like Yanni, but it's a sexy Yanni, you know? And it's like, great. It's just as somebody who feels delicious. And the rule is, this new person, this new money person, this new relationship with money, which is actually your relationship with life, much bigger than money, will feel like love. Because when you annihilate the monster, all that remains is love. And I would also say, as a species, the human race really needs a much more loving and healthy relationship with money, but it starts with us individually. So step 5 is now you have a conversation, and feel free to steal my first conversation. Money, what do you need from me to allow you to be with me the way you want to be with me? And I want you to hear all the presuppositions. Money wants to be with you, and money needs you to allow money to be with you. So you are the gatekeeper. You have the power. So step number 6 is action. What concrete, measurable action can you take to demonstrate to yourself that you are committed to this new relationship with money? And sometimes clients will balance their checkbook or call people who owe them money. And a quick word about people who owe you money. It's sort of like you're cheating on your money partner who is so madly in love with you, cheating on this life partner with somebody who doesn't value you. And how does that make your life partner feel? So the very act of following up, whether it works or not, has reverberations. And I rarely share this story, but about 20 years ago, after I changed my relationship with money and I'm making money, it started drying up. And it wasn't supposed to do that because my money was cute. I thought I had it all solved. And I had a conversation, an over dramatic conversation. I was saying something like, oh, money, why have you forsaken me? And the answer I got was, all those people who owe you money that you haven't followed up with? I just feel like you don't want to be with me. And he said it with such a broken heart. And I felt how out of integrity I was in the relationship. Not with oh, bad Morgana, shame on Morgana, just like wow, I don't want to make him feel like that. So I followed up. I followed up with 4 clients who owed me money, and I got paid part of what I was owed by one. And I have much better boundaries now about that. Just doesn't happen anymore. But at the time, only one, and only paid me part of it. And my income still quadrupled that week from other sources. So I just say, you do it. You don't know what the result of the action is, but the very doing of it makes you feel good about yourself because you kept your word. And that's good for your relationship with yourself and life and money. So that's step number 6.
So that's obviously a lot of work, a lot of self-reflection. You have to do a lot of visualization, and I'm sure it could be an emotional, trying experience for those that are in it. Oftentimes, we will hear, well, we have to reframe our relationship with money or think about it differently. What you're doing is you're actually decimating it. And then it's being brought to us what we want it to be. I know we're not creating our money, honey. It's being presented to us. But now that all of our biases, our baggage, our junk is gone, now when money is presented to us, what does it look like? That's a completely different way of looking at it, because instead of undoing everything, we're just getting rid of it.
You're rejecting what no longer has your permission to be in your life. And I do it in a very dramatic way. And honestly, I had instances where I just have a light conversation with somebody for 15 minutes. There's this artist, I think his name was Chris Callaghan, and I just kind of told him about what I did for about 15 minutes, and then I got a call the next day that he sold $100,000 in paintings. And then I'll have a client where it's hours and hours of heavy lifting, and it's just what people need at a certain time. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be easy. It's just whatever you need for your evolution and what you will get, the most benefit from. And it's time for you to transcend that and integrate it and grow bigger than it. You are always bigger than your circumstances, but the nature of circumstances are to be very convincing. And so this is a way, it's a big thing. We are rewiring your neurology.
When you brought up the example of someone owing you money, and I'm sure everyone can think of someone that owes them money, right? Whether
Sure.
it's a lot of money or just, hey, you never Venmoed me for dinner 3 years ago, whatever it is. I positioning it the way you did, of money saying that you're rejecting me. You're saying I'm not worth the effort of going, hey, you owe me something. You're not insulting the person. You're not saying you're a bad person. You owe me
Sure.
money. It's just factual. You owe me money. A client, hey, you have an invoice that's unpaid. No one should get upset by it, because we're not hurling insults or anything. But I think we make it such a thing of like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there. Or I don't need to ask them for it. Almost like I'm above it. Like it's not worth it to me to have that conversation. And putting it in the perspective that you did, yeah, it does sound like you're like rejecting the money. You're not worth money. The effort of me making a phone call and saying, hey, I'm owed this.
Yeah, it's more important that I be liked by somebody who's taking advantage of me than I am a loving partner to this person who is with me for my life. And years ago, and I bring this up because I just coached a new client 2 days ago who has exactly the same dynamic, which is um, she would loan money to friends, 10, 20, $40,000 to friends, who would then flip and start hating the woman who loaned them money so that they could feel good about not paying it back. And for a person who does that out of love and kindness and friendship, that is so painful to be betrayed that way. And that is another way that the monster can show up. So there's a way to have healthy boundaries. And I'm not saying don't be philanthropic, and I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying talk it over with your money honey and come up with some uh self-loving and respectful boundaries that can make it work without having these patterns show up in your life. And then have conversations with this yummy partner who loves you and doesn't have your baggage. Because even looking at yourself and your circumstances through the eyes of this imaginary person who happens to be money, and then you can negotiate in conversation what to do next.
As we're wrapping up today, what's the biggest difference between someone who hustles hard for their six-figure income versus someone who magnetizes it
Mm.
using your principles?
Hustling. And by the way, I'm not against doing work. And effort, I think, is, good for our growth in the human spirit. But when it's hustling, there's kind of this energy of fear and scarcity. And imagine going on a date with somebody who's like all over you. Can't get enough of you, and is like talking marriage on the first date, and you're just like, ooh, back off. And that's the energy that we have of that desperation when we're hustling, or it can be. And what if you can have bigger and better results from this place of confidence and attraction? Instead of chasing money away, you become invitational and irresistible. And that would be how I would describe the difference.
I can visualize that. And oftentimes, when we are at a point of money is feeling scarce, we're feeling like things are tight. You just want to hold on so tight to it and do whatever you can to get it. Same thing like in a relationship. If you feel like your partner's maybe not, starting to, things aren't going very well, you may overcompensate, right? And you think you're doing the right thing. It just feels desperate, not in a bad way, but it just feels desperate. And I can visualize that with money, where it's like if things feel scarce and you have that, um, like there's not enough, and you're just like, I'm going to do it. Like the saying of, you hold on to sand, the tighter you hold it, the more it falls out of your hand. That's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's keep doing what you're doing. There's, like you said, there's nothing wrong with hustling and working hard and doing all of those things. And obviously you're still doing it with the goal of making money, but it's do it with a confident attitude.
One of the surest ways to repel money is by undervaluing yourself, whether it's undercharging or just that fear. And the best way to turn money on is self love and self care. Amplify your self love through whatever practice does that, that just lights you up and makes you more who you are. And that makes you attractive. It's easy to think that you have a great relationship with money in those moments when you have a lot of money. But the time you really need a great relationship with money is when things look scary. At some time down the road, the world feels unsafe and money is getting dramatic again. Slay a new monster, because you may have outgrown the honey you have, and it's time for you to evolve, and it's time to evolve your money honey. I don't believe in like silver bullets. Take this pill, do my process once, and you will never have a problem in your life. That's not life. What I want you to have is, I want you to have a tool that you can just build and build and build to your next level. And especially with something that's so fundamental to our survival as money, that is a really good place to start.
Okay, let's take a deep breath after that one. If that conversation stirred something in you, you are not alone, because Morgana just gave us a full-blown emotional rewire of how we think about money. And what I love most is that her method isn't about working harder, making a vision board, or pretending everything's fine when it isn't. It's about getting radically honest, doing the emotional cleanup, and then building a money relationship that actually feels safe, joyful, and aligned. If you're someone who's been stuck at a financial plateau, even after doing everything right, this might be the permission slip you didn't know you needed. Slay a few monsters if you need to. And if you loved this episode, here's what you can do to keep the energy flowing. Follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Leave a rating and review. It helps other high-earning women find this content as well. And come hang out with us on Instagram at Everyone's Talking Money. And remember, money should be a tool to live life on your terms. You don't have to settle for hustle and scarcity when love, joy, and wealth are on the table.